Alright, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to Jordan's Guitar Channel. Today we'll be talking about the EVH 5150 EL34 and how to get a tight modern metal sound out of it. Now before we get to the amp, we're going to start with the guitar. Now it doesn't really matter what kind of guitar you have. Pickups do matter, despite what Northern Yankee Witch will tell you. Some of you will get that, some of you won't. You really want a hot, high output humbucker. My personal opinion, you can argue all you want in the comments. I prefer the EMG81 or Fiston's Fluence, the actives. This guitar is tuned to drop C with 11 through 52 D'Addario NYXL strings. Somebody will be curious, so you'll know. You want to make sure your guitar is well set up and you have good tension. So that way you get a nice tight response. Another part that nobody really talks about is your pick. I use the Planet Waves Black Ice. It is a 1.5 millimeter and there is no give to that pick at all. So we're gonna move on to the amp and the pedals. So let me move this guitar neck out of the way. You see the gain, I've got a little more than a quarter of the way up, low at noon, mids about a quarter of the way up, highs at noon, and I've got the presence about 3/4 of the way up. And you may be thinking, dude, that's a lot of presence, bro. Well, I'm using the Mesa Boogie 4x12 traditional with traditional slant, with Celestion's V30s in it. And this is a pretty dark sounding cab. So you'll notice in a minute when I turn off the pedals and just play the amp sound, it is kind of bassy and boomy. And I do have the resonance set pretty low, which is about 8 or 9 if you were looking at a clock, and that's just enough to give you a good bass response. So let's move on to the pedals. This amp is kind of noisy on the red channel, not too bad, but if you want a nice tight modern precision type of tone, good noise gate. 4 cable method is the way to go. I use the Reb G8 noise gate. No, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I do this all on my own dime. So basically the 4 cable method, if you're really getting into detail, I'll make a video about it. If not, feel free to look it up. Essentially, running it this way, it cuts out all the noise from the guitar, from the pedal board, and your amp. So I'm running that straight into an MXR 6-band EQ. That comes out into the Friedman Buxa Boost and into a Plumes tube screamer style overdrive into the front of the amp. Very simple setup. So in the beginning you heard the noise gate, the 6-band EQ, and the Friedman. Now the Friedman also too has a 3-band EQ up top, a tight and a boost. Everything's set at noon. The MXR is set flat at 0. So that's what you heard in the intro. We'll turn that off. Here is just the amp settings by themselves. Now if you notice, it's kind of bassy, it's kind of lifeless, and that's because I've got the mids turned down quite a bit, because I find the mids on the EVH to be a little honky, little cocked wah type sounding, and that's where the boost and the EQ come in. By doing that, you have more control over all the frequencies over just your 3-band EQ on the amp, and that's how you get that nice tighter, get rid of that honky mid and control whatever sound and frequencies you're looking for. So this amp does pretty well on its own. So crank the gain up to about noon, or crank the mids up a little bit to bring it a little bit to life, and this Now, if you notice, it is a really good sounding amp. Like I said, I just prefer to run the EQs in the boost, but by itself, it sounds really, really nice. Now, if you're a big fan of that sound, but you want to tighten it up a little bit, First thing you want to do is crank your gain down just a smidge, and you're going to kick on the tube screamer style overdrive. And I've got the level all the way up, gain all the way down, tone at noon. This is how it sounds like. Now, if you notice, a lot of fuddy-duddies will tell you, well, you don't need a boost. Well, it's not for gain because the pedal in itself, the gain's all the way off. So basically what it's doing is just adding a little smidge of gain, and it's bringing up the low end and the mids and the highs and tightening everything up and giving you a more clear, precise type of sound. And it sounds fantastic. Sounds great. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, I am running the amp into a two notes torpedo, and I'm using it as the attenuator function, which gives me a negative 20 dB cut. And the reason I'm doing that is because it helps the amp saturate a little earlier at a lower volume, because I live in a neighborhood and I don't want cops coming to my house. Because this amp is so loud, bro. It's so loud. Jesus Christ, it's so loud. And on one, it's crazy loud. It'll shake the windows in your house. And plus, with the EVH series of amps, if you don't have a load box or an attenuator, the saturation doesn't really kick in until you get around 3 or 4 in the volume, which is enough to play a show with. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions or comments you liked or disliked the video, please let me know. Subscribe for more. Help me grow this little baby YouTube channel into a full-ground size human YouTube channel. Much peace, much metal, much love, and we'll see you next time, guys. Peace out.